Hello.
Hello.
So, a lot of your comics are about history. Why do you think people respond so strongly to stories about the past?
I'm not sure. I think that it's just stories about humanity, about people, that you can get involved in people's lives and figure out why events happened and who the personalities behind them. And when you get into the real story of people's relationships and the reasons things happen, it pulls you in.
But it's a funny little conceit, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. There's a great story in the new book about some Irish Americans that hatch a plan to invade Canada
Yeah.
in 1870. What happened there?
Well, we all learn about that, I think, in like junior high school texts.
Yeah.
They were all Civil War veterans, or they were led by Civil War veterans after that war ended, and they planned to organize and come into Canada and basically take it hostage and then trade it to England for Ireland's freedom. And I think that you can kind of understand where they're coming from, because they had just lived through a big war where there was major stakes, and they're like, we can just do it again, maybe. But they landed in a few southern Ontario towns, and they caused a lot of havoc there.
It's an ambitious plan.
It's an ambitious plan, and it was not the best plan.
Not the best conceived plan.
It didn't work.
Do you see that sort of paranoia, though, right now about takeover?
Oh, yeah. Well, I've always been interested in the times where we've had annexation sort of crisis scares that pop up here and there. We're like, oh, wow, America's really coming to get us now. And the local politicians are like, well, that'll never happen. And I think that time in the 1860s, those raids kind of solidified feelings about Confederation. They were like, yes, we must defend ourselves against, American attack. And it's another way that Canadians define themselves as not American.
Yeah, what do you think it says about Canada that we still have these fears?
I don't know. I think it's that mouse in bed with an elephant thing. There's reason to be sort of wary, I guess, even though everybody's probably fine.
You have some comics in here about the American founding fathers like Benjamin Franklin,
Yeah.
George Washington. There's a mythology around those guys. Do you think we have the same thing here, though?
No, not in the same way. Those guys are almost pop culture icons. Like I went to, this past weekend, I went to Mount Vernon, George Washington's home, because I was in Maryland for a comic show. And you walk around and you see his house, and then you go into the gift shop, and there's little, George Washington bobbleheads. And my favorite was one of those, like, it was a bookmark that had him chopping down a cherry tree.
Yeah.
If you turned it, it was one image or the other. And anyway, it was like a hologram. But yeah, they show up, in movies and on TV there, and there's musicals about them. And
We don't have Arthur Meehan bobbleheads.
yeah, nobody. I was like, why would you have that? No, I think that in order to kind of make somebody a pop culture icon that you enjoy in that way, you have to be willing to kind of overlook their flaws. And everybody's aware of the fact that, say, the Founding Fathers, most of them owned slaves. But that doesn't stop people from loving George Washington. But in Canada, I don't think that we give people that kind of pass, where they've been trying to get that Sir John A. Macdonald Day off the ground for such a long time now. January 11th is his birthday. And getting people excited. And people are kind of like, yeah, he was all right, except for when he rolled through Manitoba and, with his murder train.
Yeah.
And
Do you think that's good that we have a more nuanced understanding of history in our...
Yeah, I feel like that there's... I like that we don't give people a pass. I think that we take the good with the bad. And... That makes it harder to sell bobbleheads, but it makes us better, maybe.
Is that your approach too to history? To
yeah,
try and
absolutely.
See things in those
yeah,
terms?
Yeah, because you're not going to find that many people whose story is without some kind of glaring flaw that is maybe of their time or maybe just special to them. And but that doesn't mean you can't be into the good things that they did, as if you're aware of the bad.
What does that do as far as you choosing your heroes?
Oh, it makes it harder, I suppose. If you want to say like somebody is my hero, then you probably aren't going to be like, well, Andrew Jackson is my hero because he was against big banks, and you're like, when you find someone who's truly inspiring, whose life story really inspires you, then they really they really stand out. They really touch you.
So what do you try to do when you write about these figures? Are you trying to mythologize them or to humanize them?
I guess both. It's a good thing I'm not an actual historian.
It's more fun this way, right?
Yeah, it is.
Yeah. I want to talk about a more contemporary story. You put out a comic last year called Ducks.
Yep.
It's about your times working in the oil sands in Fort McMurray. What did you want to say about that experience there?
Ducks was a test to see if I could write a story that felt true to me about the place, because I worked there for 2 years, and also felt true to other people that had worked there and resonated with an audience. Because when I read about Fort McMurray, when I read a lot, articles and exposés, not a lot of it is a place that I recognized.
Interesting.
You find a lot of people who spent 2 weeks there and then wrote their newspaper, anyway, their newspaper article, and I mean, it's difficult to actually get in on the ground floor. You can't go into the mines without a pass. There's a lack of access for most journalists or media people who would like to tell a story. So and I felt there was a lack of stories from people who had been there out in like accessible to most people. I found that when I left, it was a mystery. That I said I worked at Fort McMurray, and people were like, "Wow, that's crazy," but there was no. It was like saying I went to the moon.
What was missing from the accounts that you read?
Just narratives of regular people. Like it's not. I don't have an opinion, I guess, on. I don't want to write a story that just condemns it or praises it. I just wanted to sort of tell it like it is, because some people work there because for different reasons, because they want to make a lot of money or because they have to support their family or all these reasons that people end up there. And I found that just the human story was kind of missing from things that I've read.
The name Ducks is a reference to 500 ducks that were killed in a tailings pond.
Yes.
Is that right? I know you want to make a book about your experience in Fort McMurray. Why do you think comics are a powerful way to communicate that kind of experience?
I think comics are a really powerful storytelling tool. If you read some memoirs in comics, I find that they really stick with you. I think that people remember what they've seen and read in comics. It's two skills in one. It's both words and pictures. So it's like reading. If it's done, really well, it's like looking at an amazing painting and reading an amazing novel at the same time. There's a lot of different ways that you can tell the story, and
is it special for injecting that humanity that you thought was missing from?
I don't think so. It's just my particular medium. I would read a novel about it as well, but I can't write a novel, so maybe I don't know.
What were you doing in Fort McMurray, if you don't mind me asking?
I worked in a tool crib, which is like a supply warehouse for the different trades. We would supply them with all of the tools and equipment and safety items that they needed to work there every day.
Were you writing and drawing while you were there?
I was, yeah.
What was that experience like versus back on the East Coast or elsewhere?
It was nice because it is a lot of work there. You would work really long shifts and then sleep and then work again. But I would work, and then on my break I would draw, and I would come home to my like camp room, and I would draw there. And it was like regaining a little piece of myself, because you're kind of part of this. I was up there to pay off my student loans, and it was nice to have a little piece of me as well, because you really are in the machine up there.
A lot of people find it hard to balance that level of work and also, do something creative. But you seem to have been going back and forth pretty easily.
Yeah, absolutely. But I was also young and unattached, and I didn't really have anything else going on.
Okay, we talked about oil. We've talked about important people. But bringing it back to the book, there's so much more in this book. Superheroes, radical feminists, the X-Files. What do you think unites all of these stories?
Nerdiness. I think that it's just the comics. Usually they're a reflection of anything that I'm interested in at the time, and so that could be all over the place. When I took my degree, I remember coming into the office of the advisory office, and they were going to say whether or not you were able to get your major or not. So they count up the courses. And they were like, your courses are just all over the place. They don't, what did you focus on? I was like, nothing.
This is when you were at Mount Allison?
Yeah. So I don't know. And then I thought, oh yeah, I probably should have focused on something so that I could go into like a master's program. I didn't. I was all over the map.
But now it's to your advantage. You have this range of interests and
yeah. No regrets.
Are any of these categories particularly fun for you to play with? Superheroes, history?
They all are.
Yeah.
I think that I like to have a mix of things that are something that requires research, something that doesn't, something that is well known to people, something that's obscure, something that's just silly. And when I'm making the comics, it's usually what I'm most interested in that day.
Yeah.
So maybe I was sick of the thing before, but then I'll come back to it. I think that if you're always working on the thing that you like the best, then you're going to be putting out your best work.
I want to go out on a song. It relates to a story from your book. The song is Nasty by Janet Jackson. Could you tell us that story?
Sure. That comic is about there's a man he's in the Janet Jackson's Nasty video for about 3 seconds. They're all bothering her. Like a bunch of people are bothering her while she's trying to watch a movie with her friends. And they're like, hey, girl. And instead of just telling them to go away, she gets on stage and starts dancing, and she destroys them. She like tears their world apart because not only she starts dancing, she goes out into the street and everyone starts dancing with her, and she's singing about nasty boys and they don't mean a thing. And then you don't see those characters again from the beginning of the video. I don't know why that stuck with me. I think that it's just an awesome video. And I like the idea of somebody just sort of aggravating you a little bit, and then you tear their world apart. So the comic follows this guy around as he tries to piece his life together. Because everywhere he looks, Janet Jackson is calling him nasty boy and says that he doesn't mean anything. So he finds his own people. He finds like his own crowd. He builds his life back up.
It's a beautiful backstory.
I know, it's beautiful.
From Julius Caesar to Janet Jackson.
Yeah.
Right? Now the source material for one of Kate's comics, all about the fall and rise of a Janet Jackson backup dancer from 1986. We're going to play Nasty on cue. I've been speaking with Kate Beaton, the author of the wildly popular webcomic Hark a Vagrant. A new collection of her comics is called Step Aside, Pops. She joined me here in Studio Q.